Welcome to Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and KWBY, and again on Saturday morning at 9 on KATX and KWBY as Angela Robinson joins Terry Slavens to share important financial information to help you live life on purpose. Insurance, investments, estate and tax planning, and much more. All covered now on Life Planning 101.
Good morning. Good Monday morning. Welcome into Life Planning 101. Blakeney Hodges sitting in for Terry Slavens this marvelous, beautiful morning outside.
That's right. After some cold weather, it's much needed and much welcomed, right?
Yes, and there's more on the way. So,
yes. Well, good Monday morning, and it's an interesting Monday morning. There are lots of headlines in the news this morning. Obviously, we came off of a week of a little volatility in the market. We came off of a weekend that everybody's feeling the burn, so to speak. We've got 2 elections that have passed where Bernie Sanders is one, and then one where he was tied. So, I guess that is the consensus right now in the Democratic field. And with all that being said, we have got to show for you. We are going to be talking about what this election is, what it means, what it could mean, what people aren't talking about if there is to be a blue wave, so to speak. And then at the end of the show, we have our very own CFA on, and he is going to be talking about that volatility that's been happening in the market and what people need to be thinking about there. So what do you need to know about this election year? Let's get started there. Well, I think it can start out by being summed up. Whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, you know that Republicans and Democrats are kind of like divorced parents, and they care more about who their kids hate than their actual well-being of their kids, right? So this is the society we live in, and the pendulum is really, really heavy in Washington. There is no such thing as just hanging in the middle and compromise these days, and we're all fearful of that, no matter what side of the aisle you sit on. Talking to people, I've been traveling a significant amount of time over this last 4 weeks and talking to people. There's a general consensus of how the 2020 election is going to turn out. Whether it's from a consensus of optimism or cynicism, most people are of the belief that Donald Trump is going to be reelected, right? And most likely, if we look at past presidents' history, there's a good chance of that happening, him getting reelected, as long as we stay in this so-called booming economy where everybody feels good about their pocketbook and their situation, right? However, there's no guarantee of that. I mean, our economy, and I think Aaron will speak to some of this later on in the show, it's doing well, but we have to remember that we are in a very fragile economy. We are in a very pumped up economy. There's a lot of good going on, but there's a lot of things out there that, aren't so encouraging. And just to name a few, I listened to an economist at the end of January, and he gave some points to this. He said our federal debt is continuing to rise against GDP. Over the past 50 years, if you looked at our debt, it has averaged about 2.9% of GDP. It's expected to be 4.7% of GDP over the next 10 years. So that's almost double what it has been in the past. Consumer debt has risen steadily over the past 5 years. You remember back in 2008 when we had the big recession, consumer debt, most people were in debt, not in the profit. And it's $1.3 trillion higher today than it was in the third quarter of 2008. Okay. Global debt was projected to reach $255 trillion by the end of 2019. That's representing a 320% representation of global GDP. Okay, not 100%, not 200%, over 300%. And then, and this one that he was talking about, of course, we know that this can be owed to a multiple of things, including the China trade war. But U.S. manufacturing and agriculture have been on the decline for over a year. And usually those are signs of a positive economy. So, and not to be amiss, our stock market keeps hitting all-time new highs, which everybody says, when is that ride going to end? So I know I'm pointing out a lot of doom and gloom here, all right? And that's not to say that our economy is doom and gloom. I don't have time in the show to tell you everything positive that's going on, but there is a lot positive. But what it does mean is that we are on a very, very fragile surface. And we have to remember that we can't get overconfident about what is happening just because our pocketbook feels good and just because our statement looks good when we see it every single month, right? So, if all that were, if one little thing were to hiccup and all that were to come crashing down before November, then you have to ask yourself, what's the likelihood of that pendulum to swing in Washington? And the second thing you got to ask yourself is, what does that mean to you? And I have one word: taxes. And we're going to talk about that when we come back on Life Planning 101.
Welcome back into Life Planning 101 right here on KATX KWBY. Angela Robinson in studio as always.
Talking about election year and what it could mean for you if the Democrats end up taking control. And a lot of people say, well, if they just take the presidency, that's really not taking control. Well, and we talked about why. So if you missed the first segment of the show, you're going to have to go back and revisit. We got too much to go over in this show. But there's also the Congress that we have to think about. Now, the House is unlikely to flip just because of despite what the economy's health is going to do. It's just not likely. There's not enough turnover. I mean, it could happen, but it's not likely. Now, in the Senate, this is where you have to pay attention. There's actually 35 seats up in the Senate. 23 of those 35 are Republican. 8 or so of those are in swing states. And all Democrats need to do is gain 3 to 4 seats to take control of the Senate. So it's not a far stretch to say that pendulum could swing in Washington. And that's going to lead me to another nonpartisan statement. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, you better have your lifeboat in place before November. Because if you wait to see what happens in November, it is too late. You are not going to find someone that has the time of day to help you with your tax planning to try to get it done before the end of the year. Because if that blue wave does occur, every single one of those candidates has made it a priority that tax reform is going to be out the window. Things are going to change significantly, and it will probably retroactivate to January 1st of 2021. So you better be ready. And, and I'll take it from a Democratic senator in Montana that said, since tax reform has been passed, this is going to be the greatest opportunity of our lifetime. So you better hang on, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you had it in the 80s, and now you have it again. Why aren't you planning for it today? And that's a big question. So, what does this mean to you? And I know everybody's feeling the burn, right? So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Sanders' tax plan and how it could affect you. But I also brought in a moderate. I also brought in Biden because obviously he's the middle of the road. So this is kind of a best case scenario if Biden were to get elected. So let's look at Sanders. Right now we have a income tax rate of 37%. That's the top tax rate in our country. Now all that's bracketed. Sanders is proposing a 70% tax rate. Okay. Now he's increasing the brackets. But if you make over $250,000 a year, your tax bracket would be 44%, as opposed to the 37% it is now. That's a massive increase. Okay. Capital gains. We always know that they have preferential rates, especially if you fall below certain income levels. You could even have capital gains tax of 0 in our country today. Well, he wants to put these in relation to ordinary gain or ordinary income rates. So that's back up to that 44, 70%, whatever those rates are, if your income is over $250,000 a year. Okay, so that could be extremely a big difference in our economy.
That's a big deal.
That's a huge deal.
Because we're not just talking stocks and bonds. We're talking investment at a corporate level.
Everything, yes, real estate.
Buying tractors, buying buildings, buying factories. This is a big deal. This is desensitizing us to invest.
Yes.
Keeping us from investing, penalizing us from doing that
That's
as a
right.
global scale.
So that's a big deal. And let's go back to Biden on these two issues, because this is the middle of the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
Biden just wants to restore the income tax levels we had before the Trump tax reform. So 37 would go to 39.6%. So it's not just so heartbreaking,
Mm-hmm.
but he wants to take the capital gains tax rates to a top level of that 39.6%. So it doesn't matter if you're looking at a moderate
Mm-hmm.
or you're looking at someone that is considered a socialist. We have massive, massive increases just in our everyday tax returns.
Yeah.
Now,
Investment, that trickles down to the worker.
yes.
So they're actually shooting themselves in the foot.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so, this is a big deal. Now, let's look at it. Let's look at estate tax too, because a lot of people are not feeling any pain. A lot of people are not feeling any pain. And we've actually seen people not take action just because they think it's no longer a big deal. We have an estate tax exemption that's above $10 million right now. So if you have over $10 million, you are under $10 million, and it's actually higher than that at the moment, but you don't have to pay estate tax, right? Well, we forget before tax reform, that was half of that. Mm-hmm. Okay. And now we're looking at the Democrats that want to come into office. Biden says at best case, we're going to roll back the Tax Jobs and Reconciliation Act. So that means we're going to go back to that $5 million level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sanders wants to take that all the way back to $3.5 million. So now if you've got an estate that's over $3.5 million, you're going to incur tax. And not only are you going to incur tax, but he's going to increase the tax rate on it. It has a scale. 45 to 77% will be taxed. Will be your tax rate.
It's a pretty broad number. Like,
Wow.
Yep,
45 to 77.
77% of your net worth could be sent to the IRS. Think about that,
77?
right? So, and the other thing that both of them want to do is eliminate, and this is a big one, especially our farmers and ranchers and landowners and real estate owners and business owners. They want to eliminate the step up in basis, both of them. Both of them. So that means when you die, you have a ranch that you bought for $100 an acre, and today it's worth $5,000 an acre. Mm-hmm. Well, if you died today, your children, their new basis in that property would be $5,000 an acre. So if they go to sell it, then they only realize any tax on a gain above $5,000, not what you bought it for back in 70 something,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So now in some families, farming families, I know this, your cost basis goes back for many generations. It might be $2 an acre, right? Okay. So if they eliminate this, what this now means is now they take over whatever your cost basis is. If it's $2 an acre and they sell it for $10,000 an acre, they're going to pay taxes on every bit of that. Okay. So that's within both of their plans. Sanders not only wants to do that, but he wants to make that realization of that event occur at death. You don't even have to sell the property. You're just the family's going to pay taxes on the difference between the cost basis and what it's valued at when you die.
And guess what the greatest amount of wealth is tied up in across America?
Land.
Real estate.
Real
Real
estate,
estate, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
And so they
including
see
land.
this. I mean,
Yeah.
we've been saying forever.
They want your money.
Yeah, we've been saying forever.
want your money.
With the Secure Act when
It's
we
not
did.
fair that you have it.
Yeah, when we did the Secure Act show, earlier this year, we said we see this stuff ending. It's a matter of time before it ends because the government knows what we know. There's money there. It's just with the IRAs. There is money there to be had. They've just got to be able to get their hands on it. So that's really big. Another thing that Sanders is looking to do is do a wealth tax. Now, what is a wealth tax? There's going to be a national wealth registry in which every wealthy person has to register. And there's going to be mandatory audits of 30% of the people every year in that national wealth registry. And any billionaire will be audited every year no matter what. Okay? Now, that's how he's going to find it. Then second of all, anybody with an excess wealth over $32 million or 16 million if you're a single taxpayer. So 32 million if you're married, 16 million if you're a single taxpayer. This is your entire net worth. This is everything you have, right? So your land, your businesses, everything. If it's over that amount, you're going to be taxed a wealth tax on the percentage or on what's over that amount. Okay. Now in Europe, 12 countries did this in 1990. Only 4 were left in 2017 still doing it. And here's why. The cost of doing it, and this was actually a quote by one of the countries, the cost of doing it cost the government more than actually getting the money from the
what you
wealth
would
tax.
find and recover.
Because
that was my first thought when you said what it would be. I was like,
how do you do it?
Who's going to do all that?
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be very time consuming. And somebody's got to get paid to do it.
Exactly.
And
But
you're
it
penalizing people
is
for
in his
having too
proposal.
much.
So there is no wealth tax proposal in Biden's, but it is in several of the other candidates as well. So I just think it's really important for people to understand that we are living in a not only a fragile economy, a fragile tax environment in which you need to think about, what am I doing right now that is going to hedge against this taxation in the future? Because if it's not now, it's when is this going to happen? I mean, we have a pendulum that's swinging back and forth in Washington. If you think that, the House and the Senate and the presidency are going to stay red forever, well, it's just not going to happen.
No chance.
That can't happen. So you have to be thinking about, how can I do this right this second? So, I look back to, there's a joke about a little girl that she's asking her granddad. She says, does every fairy tale begin with once upon a time? And he said, no, not every fairy tale. Some begin with if I'm elected.
I like that.
That's good.
So
That's really good.
Yeah. So, here we are. If I'm elected, here's the fairy tale that's going to happen. And, I was listening this morning to Stephen Fuderick, and obviously he's a minister, but he said, there's a lot of information out there, but something that's lacking today is wisdom. What would your granddad tell you if he were sitting here today learning what you just learned? What should you be doing? What should be your priority right now? Should you be calling your planner saying, I need help with this, I need to get something started right now? Or, I'll just put it off. If it happens, it happens. What would your granddad tell you? This may be the largest thief of your money over the next generation. What are you going to do to protect it? More when we come back on Life Planning 101 with our CFA. You're not going to want to miss it, about the volatility in the markets last week and what you need to be doing with yours.
Welcome back in. It's Life Planning 101 here on KATX and KWBY. We're back at it. What are we talking about? Taxes. I know that, in elections.
Yes, exciting stuff, right?
All exciting stuff.
Everybody loves to talk about taxes. Everybody loves to talk about politics. I'm sure it's on the top of everybody's list.
Can we throw some religion in there while we're at it?
Fastest way to get in a fight.
Yeah,
These are conversation starters.
So let's jump on to something even more fun: volatility, right?
Yeah.
So what the heck happened last week, Aaron?
Lots of things. Mostly it was, we have earnings reports coming out right now, and we have this coronavirus going on in Asia, in China specifically, and it's trickling out around the world, and we don't know how big it is. Just like any other number that comes out of China, we just have no idea what's real and what's not, what's inflated. We know something is, we just don't know how bad it is. And Apple came out and said, hey, our revenues are going to be lower because of this.
$11 million, wasn't it?
A lot, yes. Hey, and guess
like
what?
a
A lot of
quarter.
stuff is getting made over there, too, from Apple. So it became
It
this...
was probably more than $11 million. Sorry. I remember
A little bit more than 11
I remember hearing it like in the background on the news, and it was a big number, and I was like, oh. And then after I said that, I was like, $11 million is nothing to Apple. It was probably a lot more than that. Sorry. But you get the picture.
Yeah. But it became real.
Yes.
It absolutely became real. And the market reacted to it. There's still no concrete answers out there of what's going to happen, but we know there is going to be some global slowdown. And that's basically all that happened last week. The entire year has been this way. We've been sheltered from it. It's been an absolutely crazy year. If you look at what's made money, Long-term treasuries are almost up 10% year to date. Long-term treasuries. And they were almost the number one performer last year. They were in the fixed income world. They were up almost 20%. Gold is almost up 10% this year.
Yeah, I saw it was at an all-time high or something. I saw some headline about it this weekend.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
If we go look at any of the momentum indexes, guess what they're loaded up with? Utilities,
Yeah.
real estate. Everybody's scared to death.
Yeah.
And it's making a bunch of money.
I was about to
even
say,
scarier.
we always forget that a market climbs a wall of worry.
Yes.
And here we are. We are in a wall of worry. What were we talking about the first part of the show?
Yeah,
That's exactly right. And if we go back and look at last year, there's a lot of debate whether we were actually in a recession last year. Things from a manufacturing standpoint were not good, and it was poor enough that it could have pushed us down into a recession. We're going to know pretty soon whether those numbers actually hit. But guess what? The Fed started putting out numbers last week, and all the forward indicators are turning. First time that they're gaining momentum in years. So, a lot of the manufacturing was part of Boeing's problems, and anytime you stop producing billions upon billions of dollars of inventory, that's going to slow down. But right now, we're even putting that behind us and starting to turn the corner from a manufacturing standpoint. And usually something leads and something follows. And last year, Europe led us into this manufacturing thing. And hopefully we have the U.S. leading us out.
Right.
We still have trade concerns with China, but things are loosening up. We need one more big trade deal to go through. But, at least they're letting our agricultural goods go over there. They're starting to lessen up a little bit on our technology. So trade's opening up, and that's good. We're starting to manufacture things more. And this duopoly of the market. We're either making a ton of money being very, very, very safe, or we're making a ton of money being as aggressive as you possibly can. And anything in the middle, value investing, dividend growth investing, small company investing, you ain't doing squat.
Yeah.
This is truly a strange time we're living in right now.
Yeah, and I think, it was interesting to me. I heard a CFA speak this last week, and he was talking about the S&P 500 and how there's so much technology that they've actually created a new category called communications, right? But it's still technology. If you look at it at the same thing. And so, they're trying to diversify it, but in reality, it's still the same thing. So, we're so heavy in those areas. And, as you're looking at that, if you can tell, and I know we're running out of time, what do people need to be thinking if they are overweighted in technology right now?
More than likely you are, just period, because that's where you've made the majority of your wealth over the last 10 or 15 years. It's time to take some gains. There's nothing wrong with making money. Really, the most pain I could experience is watching something go all the way to the top and then come all the way down.
Yeah.
Talk about a bunch of emotions that you didn't have to take. Rebalance. If you say, hey, I'm an aggressive investor, I want 30% of my money in technology, that's wonderful. Right now it's 45. Trim it.
Yeah.
Take your gains.
Yeah.
You did a good job of making money. Now do the right thing and rebalance your portfolio and get back to the risk. Keep to your
disciplines is what you're saying.
Get back to the risk you're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I think that's important for all of our listeners. I know we're short on time. We surely appreciate you being on the show today, Aaron. And if you've missed any part of the show, make sure you get on www.kennedy-financial.com. You can find a list of all our podcasts. Look us up on podcasts. We're there, and you can certainly listen to this again and go into our Life Planning Center for more information. We have tons there. So want to appreciate everyone for joining us. God bless everyone, and have a great week from Kennedy Financial Services right here in Eastland, Texas.
Thank you for joining us for Life Planning 101, brought to you by Kennedy Financial Services of Eastland. Tune in every Monday morning at 8:30 on KATX and KWBY, and again on Saturday morning at 9 o'clock on KATX and KWBY for more Life Planning 101.
Advisory services offered through Smart Money Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Securities offered through Colton & Associates Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Kennedy Financial Services Incorporated is an independent of Colton & Associates Incorporated and Smart Money Group, LLC.